Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Megan and I am a homeschooling mom to 6 kids. And today we are going to talk about homeschooling multiple ages. More specifically, I'm going to be answering the question that I get very often, and that is, how do you do family subjects? How do you do multiple ages and grades in the same subjects? How does it work? So I am going to be sharing why I do it this way, but also how I do it this way. Before we go any further, I'm going to let you know I am collaborating with my really close friend Jill over at That Homeschool Life with Jill. She has 5 children, 4 of which she homeschools, and she's going to be talking about doing subjects with multiple age ranges as well. So I will stick a link to her video down below. So make sure that you head over and check it out after you watch this video. Let's get started. First, I want to talk about why we do family subjects. So our family subjects are history, science, Bible, art, music. Okay. But specifically, I'm going to be talking more about history and science today, since those are looked at as like more core subjects. And so that's what I'm going to be addressing today. So why do I homeschool all of my kids using the same history curriculum and the same science curriculum? Okay, so there's a lot of reasons, but the main thing is that it simplifies everything. I have found it super helpful in that aspect, that it just simplifies things. You are not dividing your time teaching all of your kids separate subjects. So that is the main reason, that it simplifies things. The next reason is that history and science, you have life science, you have animal science, you have physics and chemistry, subjects like that within science, different categories of science. Well, you are constantly learning about those different categories of science from the time that you start school. So because of that, all you're doing is you're digging deeper the more you go on in your years of school. So that is a big reason of why we do those subjects together. So typically what we do is we will cover things that my youngest kids are not going to retain. And that's totally okay.
Wait, hold on just a second. That is totally not what I meant to say there. I feel like what I just said that I don't do specific activities or teach to my younger kids. I do teach to my younger kids, but I also introduce material that is for my older children as well. And what they get, and otherwise it's exposure.
Because it offers them the exposure that I would like for them to have to those different concepts in science and history. Sometimes offering our kids exposure allows them to retain it better later on, because when we teach it to them as they're older, once again, they're hearing it again and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. With the idea of digging deeper as you get older into these different concepts in history and science, what I also want to say is that my oldest son is in 6th grade. So he's in middle school. And so he has been in school for quite a while at this point. So I typically will have other additional activities for him to do, which I'll get to in a little bit, that allow him to dig a little bit deeper. And then there's more simplified things and assignments that I have my younger kids do. So it's very versatile. I find it extremely versatile, especially if you have a really good solid curriculum, which I'll give some examples of that here in just a second as well. So there's just, in my opinion, a lot of benefits to doing it all together. The other thing is, you may say, well, what about your older kids? Like, what about if they're a lot older? So like I said, my oldest son is in 6th grade. And right now, it still works really well for him to just do science and history with all of us. But I know that a time is coming when that's not going to work out so well. And when that time comes, he has actually already gained so much independence. Honestly, if I really needed to, I probably could have him do his own history on his own and just come alongside him and check it and all that kind of stuff. I don't really want to do it that way. I love being involved as a family and learning together as a family. So as long as we can do that, that's the way we're going to do it. But I do know the time is coming when that is more so the direction that things will take. I won't be leading his learning as much as time goes on, especially once he gets to high school. It is a lot more independent study, just like what you would do in college. And so that's the end goal, I guess. And once we get to that point, then I'm sure I will offer some more follow-up videos to this. So as I said, we do these subjects just because they are kind of more spiral subjects and that you just keep building on it. I love my little ones just to gain and glean from exposure of these constant concepts throughout their time. And we also do history on a rotation, and I find that that helps, and I'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the how. How do I teach these subjects? I kind of already started to get into that in my why just a second ago, but hopefully I can offer you a few more details that can spark some ideas for you. So the reality is that I could tell you and show you exactly how I do this with my own children, but every family dynamic is different and every need is different for each family. And so my way of doing it exactly may not work well for you, but I will give you just a basic outline of how I make this work in our family. Okay, so the number one thing I would say would be our curriculum. If you're curious about what we use for our family subjects, I'll put a link to that video down below of what we're using this year for our family subjects. We are using a curriculum this year called My Father's World, and we are actually using one of their family cycles. I'll explain more about that in just a second. But some other curriculum that we have used in the past that has been very successful for us to do this has been Story of the World, because like I said, it is built on that 4-year cycle. You have ancient history, more of like medieval times, and then you have exploration to around 1850, and then you have 1850 to modern history. So once you go through that entire rotation, then you just go back around and you rotate through it again. I find it very valuable to do history that way, just because when you come back around, then you can dig a little bit deeper, do different projects, things like that. So the curriculum that we are currently using is made up the same way. So My Father's World, it is, some people might consider it a boxed curriculum. I suppose it is because it's already laid out for you, but I find it really versatile. You don't have to follow it exactly, and you use your own math and reading and language arts and stuff like that for each kid. So it's not like you're opening the box and every single thing is in it. It actually also reminds me a lot of Sunlight. That's another one that you could easily do with multiple age ranges. But I find My Father's World to fit even better than Sunlight does. It can incorporate more age groups. So basically what it is this year we are doing 1850 to modern times as our history. They actually use Story of the World, which is great because we love it. And so we're using volume 4 of Story of the World. We're also using all of these other resources that they have added and told you to pull in for history. And then for the science is actually Apologia, which I would recommend for multiple age ranges as well. They also have notebooks that can go with it, science notebooks, and they have a junior notebook as well as just a regular notebook. So if you have younger kids, you can use the junior notebook with them and the regular one with your older kids, and it would work quite well. You can go through all the lessons together. So we're doing the chemistry and physics of Apologia this year as part of the My Father's World curriculum. So My Father's World, like I was going to say, is built, their family cycle is built the same way as the way that Story of the World is laid out, with the chunks of history that you cycle through. And so we are really enjoying it. It's working really well. What I love is that it gives you things for your second and third graders to do. It has like an add-on. So if you have second and third graders, it gives you specific add-ons like read alouds and some alternative assignments to do for like the geography sections. And so it works really, really well for families who are homeschooling multiple ages. However, it only goes up to about 8th grade in those family cycles before they get to high school, and then they move into their actual like high school history. So I have found that very valuable. We have used My Father's World in the past and then strayed away from it because my youngest kids were not quite ready for the family cycle. Now we are, and we are plowing through and loving it. So that is a recommendation I would say. So like I said, that's one curriculum I would recommend. Sunlight, Story of the World, A Gentle Feast is another curriculum that if you would like to learn more about that one, I will actually put a link to my friend Ashley's video. She is using A Gentle Feast and she's absolutely loving it. And so if that's one you would be interested in hearing more about, I will put that link down below. It's a very Charlotte Mason curriculum that is meant to do with multiple ages as well. And then of course for science, Apologia is a great one to use. It's very solid. Again, it's going to go really in depth on some things that your younger ones, it's just going to be over their heads. But again, it's all about gaining and gleaning from exposure and gleaning what they can from it so that when they come back around in a few years, it sticks a lot better. Okay, so if you are already working with a curriculum other than what I mentioned and you want to make it work for you, there are lots of ways you can make that happen. So a few years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, I had just a 3rd grade Bob Jones science textbook, like student textbook that somebody had given me. And so it was free and I was like, oh, this is great. Like I was looking through it and I was like, I could totally adapt this for all of the ages of my kids and we could totally go through this. It actually worked really well for us because there's so many free things you can find on Pinterest or just by Googling that you can print to go along with whatever you're learning in science. So we literally just read through this student textbook and then we would do activities or research or go a little deeper or do some nature study that had to do with whatever we were learning about. And it worked out really well for us. So there's lots of ways that you can take what you already have and you can just make it your own. You can always, if you have an older student, you can have them as projects and presentations if they're older. Even your younger ones could do some presentations. I know a lot of people do like the Living Wax Museum where they research a person or an event in history and they have to present on that dressed up as that person. That's always a really fun one. Another thing you could have them do is actually research assignments like research papers, which you could also use as a writing assignment with your kiddo as well. And as far as science goes, if you wanted to go further with your older students, you could just have them do extra independent experiments or projects or research papers for that as well. Now, if you would like to see me homeschooling multiple ages in action, I have a few videos that I have done and some other sit-down videos with some tips and tricks as well. And so I will actually drop a link to those down below if you would like to know more. But please make sure you head over and check out my friend Jill's video. As I said, she's also going to be talking about the same topic. And I hope that you have found it helpful. If you are new here, I would love if you would subscribe and join on future videos. Thanks so much, guys, and have a blessed day.